Again, my name is Peter Bueller. I'm the principal. This is Jamie Ozak, our assistant principal. So, just as Jen mentioned, tomorrow, Jamie and I, the counseling staff, and a number of our students are going to come to the middle school and talk to students in their core classes at 11:15. So that'll be another chance for students to ask questions, hear the information, and start kind of the process that we really want them to be holding on to. The sooner that we can, in a sense, mature the relationships between parent and child taking on more and more responsibility for what they want to study, what they want to be passionate about, and to pursue that, the sooner we can instill that kind of transition and support for kids, the better. And so that's a lot of what the high school transition is all about, is taking on greater and greater responsibility for your son or daughter's learning. So that'll start tomorrow, and just as Jen mentioned, on Wednesday, next Wednesday the 17th at 5:30, we're hosting an open house for all parents and sons and daughters to come to the high school, have a spaghetti dinner, and sign up for classes. In addition to that, you'll hear about our counseling services, our counseling service program, as well as some of the clubs and activities that your son or daughter might be interested in checking out. So again, tomorrow for students, next Wednesday for an open house for parents and students. So we have similar slides that we had in a presentation that we did last fall, but the difference is we're going to spend a little bit more time on the courses that your son or daughter will be looking at for next year. One of the things that we are always going to be talking about, and I know that Jen does a great job with this, is talking about college preparation. And some of the things that we're aware of is that your son or daughter, you're not going to know, they're not going to know what they want to do. But we often frame college as choices, opportunities, continued learning. And that's really the framework that I think is helpful to talk about college, is in a sense this next chapter around how to support continued growth going forward. And so when we talk about college and we talk about post-secondary education, really we mean every student. And whether a student is applying to the most elite colleges or CMC or any other postgraduate education opportunity, it's very, very important for us at the high school to make sure that every young man and young woman has a plan about what they're going to do after they graduate from high school. A couple of things that we really stress in high school, and that is, I would say, and I knew I had to work in the Broncos, and because I was so excited about that game, but the word they kept using, and their coach kept using, was grit. And I think that's a great metaphor for one of the things that we really want to see in high school students. We want to see students grow their own sense of grit. What happens when you fail a test? Because most students are going to fail a test. Most students are going to fail English paper. Most students are going to, at one point, have a conflict with a teacher that is really uncomfortable. And so we talk a lot about grit at the high school and how to become an advocate for themselves. That's something that, again, we saw kind of flourish on Sunday, and we expect that kind of responsibility that students take on as they move into the high school. How can you, child, be a better advocate for themselves and work through the issues? In terms of learning versus achievement, what I'm trying to get at here is that I like to think about my own self, my own experience as a student. I wasn't necessarily the best English student, but I loved English. And that was the love that I cultivated in high school. It wasn't because I was a straight A student, I wasn't. But I really loved English. So when I was a senior, I remember specifically deciding not to take a science class, but to take 2 English classes. because I care about that subject. And that investment in high school English carried on to college, it carried on to my career, and it carried on to where I am this evening. And that was, I think, really important to me. And I think about that a lot when it comes to your son or daughter, and that is to, ask themselves, what do they care about? Not what they want to be when they grow up, because you're going to get a blank stare, right? What are you talking about? But what do you care about? What classes do you like? What teachers do you like? And to cultivate that interest going forward. There are going to be hard times, and it is about grit, and it's about discovering your interests and nurturing those interests going forward.
We do have 3 more benches up here if you guys want to come grab a seat. Or there's more chairs here if you'd rather be in the back and grab a chair.
So I'm going to talk a bit about some of the some of the specifics about course selection and some of the classes that are offered sort of next year, 9th grade, but also what it might look like as you transition through grades and get ready for college and career. And I think it's important for you guys as students to be thinking about what other choices you guys want to own in terms of getting as much as you can out of our core academic classes, but also starting to take advantage of the electives that might identify potential career that you are. There's something you do like. So that at the same time, I really appreciate about high school experience being able to, learn how to solve hard mathematics problems and also learning how to write. It was important, it was as important for me to be able to reach out to some other things that I also enjoyed doing so that I could make them part of my life after high school. So, freshman year, and as you see this, we're going to go through and you're going to see each year like a couple of example schedules. Obviously, there are tons of example schedules one might build, and I'm going to go through kind of like what progression in English might look like, what progression in mathematics might look like, and then like 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, what those schedules might look like. That might inform your choice about what you sign up for next year. Okay. So in English, there are basically two major pathways. And both of them start with English 1. That's kind of easy for you guys for next year. What you guys are signing up for is English 1. And then after your sophomore year, there might be some choices where you might be selecting advanced placement courses or not. Maybe you're looking towards concurrent enrollment in CMC where you're guaranteed to be able to start a college class after you pass. So they're kind of like the example pathways for English. For mathematics, this is where there's going to be a little bit of choice. We put this in your hands and in the hands of 8th grade teachers right now, where students might be starting in Math 1 and then progressing to something where they're probably doing a college readiness course there senior year, be that pre-calculus or CMC's college algebra or developmental ed, so they're prepared for college, or maybe they're starting in Math 2, so it's more likely they have access to downright college level courses like advanced placement calculus. So that's something that your teachers are thinking about when they're setting up recommendations. But again, you guys as students, we're going to put you guys in the driver's seat next Wednesday and from now on to make those decisions. So you want to be working with your math teacher about what you are going to want to sign up for rather than just being subject to what they sign you up for. What that's going to look like in a full schedule is, for example, the student on the left might be starting in Math 1, has the standard science, social studies, and English classes, and then there's some electives. And so you are going to be signed up for a social studies class, an English class, a science class, and a math class, which is either Math 1 or Math 2. And beyond that, there might be electives, and we put that to you guys to choose. So I put a couple of examples of the 3 electives you guys might choose as freshmen. And a more detailed course catalog is available. We'll be sharing that with the middle school tomorrow and next week. We'll be passing it on to other middle schools beyond Basalt. But there's a lot of choice there. Based on that choice, sophomore year looks a little bit the same. There's a lot of standard structure with the standard science class, social studies class, English class, and mathematics class. Though already you're starting to see opportunities to take advanced placement classes in your freshman year. Sorry. And again, continue with those electives. Either sticking with that passion, use it, or you want to be building on that every year, or trying something new, because you're still trying to seek that thing outside of our core academics that you're passionate about.
Can you say a little bit more about what is an AP class?
Yeah, so an advanced placement course it's a set of curricula developed by College Board, and the goal is to provide college-level curricula, training for teachers, and just great, rigorous academic classes. So kids are getting great learning experiences that are commensurate with what you'd be doing in college. In short, it's just really great, rigorous classes that prepare you for college and career. And it's similar to, you might be familiar with the International Baccalaureate program or the Advanced Placement program in other schools. Same deal, just great, rigorous classes, great access to resources, teachers get training, and just a good deal for you guys. Are there any questions about the Advanced Placement courses that I might delve into specifically? Bad way to ask a question. What questions might you guys have about Advanced Placement courses? Go ahead.
So you said you're going to share a catalog. Is that catalog posted online already?
Oh, that's a great question.
Or a sample of what it is this year?
Yeah, so this actually currently on our website is still the old one from last year. That's helpful still, but tomorrow, I guess, we're going to be posting the real live one that is next
On
for
the high
next year's
school
conference.
site or
yeah,
no
on the high school site. And I guess, you probably pass that through the middle school site as well. I'm glad you asked. Thank you for asking that. We will also be providing some hard copies to middle schools, but you can go get it at the website if you recommend do that. Go ahead.
I think I saw on the district website that there was a nomination or acknowledgement about the number of AP courses that are now available throughout the district, but also at Basalt. Is there a statewide or nationwide monitor on the quality of those classes, or in the way that we have common course numbers?
Yeah.
Is there something like that for AP?
The nice thing about the advanced placement course is you do have like local control of how it's delivered, but the assessment, so what you're aiming towards, the curriculum is developed by an outside organization. And it's an assessment and it's a set of standards you want to start. It's not something external that will hold you to you don't want it. So students take an assessment after each course. If you require that all students take that, students say, are doing. And so yes, that is in place. And we have work to do, but students are more assessments.
And so then some colleges accept credit for those classes?
Yeah, so I can give you we have a college career counselor that will give you much more robust answer to your question. The answer is, it depends. Some colleges yes, some colleges no. You kind of have to think about the college and how you did the test. So it depends. What's guaranteed in the health college is you've got your learning experience and you now are successful. That's really what a data is. It's like, if you take that course, you're more likely to be successful in college. It's a lot more varied as to whether you're going to get credit or not.
Sure. Can I ask one more question about another, are they called electives?
Yes.
The Spanish coursework
Yes.
at high school, is that, can you explain at what level of Spanish language that's offered? Is that for English language learners or?
Well, we have we have a Spanish for Spanish speakers, so the native speakers who need more academic support, speaking and writing, reading, listening, and this one. Spanish can actually start with Spanish for Spanish speakers. We also have Spanish 1, which would be the Spanish track that I took when I was in high school, and they both aim towards advanced placement Spanish.
And along those lines, the Spanish for Spanish speakers next week on Tuesday, we'll be giving a test to any student who's a native Spanish speaker so that we have an idea of where to begin with them, what their native Spanish skills are to determine which Spanish class they'll be going in. So that'll happen at lunch next Tuesday. We'll be gathering all those kids together in the library for that. And we do have more chairs up here if you want to come sit
There also.
I have a question. When you're talking about next week and all these, the catalog online, what about students that are coming from other middle schools? When will they have the opportunity to sign up for classes or figure out where they might fit in?
So I just want maybe I was about to say, hey, we're going to get to that. Maybe that bears stating right now. Like we're talking about next Wednesday at 5:30 at Basalt High School is for all students who want to register at Basalt High School, including those who might be coming from schools outside of Basalt Middle School.
So that's next Wednesday, 5:30.
Yes. Now that brings up some tough thing, but when do they take this Spanish placement test? How do the recommendations that have been coming to the high school in the form of a nice tidy spreadsheet from the middle school for mathematics, how does that happen with Aspen Community School, or how does that happen with other schools? And I think what we need to do is just work and communicate outside of these events to make sure that information gets passed back and forth. So if, where's your son or daughter in school?
Excuse me?
Where's your son or daughter in school?
He's at the Waldorf School.
Okay, so I would recommend that your principal connect with one of us about how to make recommendations outside the standard ones, specifically for mathematics for kids coming from that school.
When you say somebody from the school or one of you two directly?
One of us
Who would
directly.
be the contact?
Oh, go ahead. Now with that partnership with CMC, so we do partner with CMC to offer courses outside of what we can offer with our capacity. And through that, CMC offers French, for example. We have lots of students taking online a German course, but through our core offerings, we're currently offering Spanish. We will see the course catalog to see what's in French. If you can pass it to it, go pass it, do that. The prerequisites are controlled by CMC, so whatever their assessment plan is, you try to navigate that. And I think we described a little bit how that in the course catalog, but it's probably want to dig in more than just the course catalog. Go ahead, yeah.
Are there requirements, or what are the requirements for students who want to take AP classes? What achievement level do they have to be at to qualify to take those classes?
Each of the individual AP classes comes with its prerequisites, and so we don't want to be screening kids out of it. We just want to make sure that they have an adequate background to be successful in it. So, for example, the AP calculus class would have enough prerequisites, enough mathematics to basically understand the functions that you need to understand in order to take calculus. So that's individual for each course. It will be in the course catalog, and it's just whatever the department has determined is the success indicator for the AP class. Which is not answering the question, because it's like it depends. Yeah. And just kind of a transition to later grades, and this is years off, right? But you should just know that as you start to get to 11th and 12th grade, we've spent a lot of time in the core academic content areas. You've been looking into electives. You're starting to get a bigger picture about what you're going to be pursuing, or what at least you're interested in terms of the rest of your schedule, the rest of your day. Maybe a major or a career. You're not committing to your career when you're in 11th grade and you're 16 or 17 years old, but we want the flexibility for you guys to be able to take rigorous core classes, but also maybe take on some classes like spending more time with sciences, environmental science, when you're starting to see a passion, and really letting you kind of, not putting a ceiling on your learning in something you're passionate about, either junior or senior year. And I should quickly come back to the note about, junior year, we have a college and career discovery class where we actually spend a lot of time working with students, making a plan for that transition after high school. And it's not just about getting into college, but it definitely supports that process for all kids quite a bit. So just to kind of wrap up this is not to wrap it up like and now we're going to leave, but just that, hey, our course offerings, it's a lot of stuff. And I put a couple examples up there just to illustrate that it's like what we do is we're here to help you guys grow to where you're ready to be successful in college and career. And that's both inspiration and support and having high expectations for you. So that's just kind of what we do. And in doing that work, we're trying to increase the rigor in all classes, but also bring in classes that have that built-in rigor and support, like advanced placement courses. We're trying to put a lot of supports around you, like crew. You guys have crew in middle school here. We're trying to build that into our day as well, in a way so we have somebody checking in and supporting kids in their path through graduation, college, and career. We're also trying to put explicit classes in there, like discovery, that just help you navigate the paperwork and the process of getting to the next level. So that's just kind of what we do. We're working on it. We're going to continue to work on it, and we're trying to help you guys be at the center, or when I say you guys, I mean the students, be at the center of that process.
A couple things I want to add about similarities between the two schools. We have some similar communication structures. They send out a weekly newsletter. We send out a weekly newsletter. They post on Facebook. We kind of over communicate. There are texts and emails and phone calls, all to let you know that the newsletter is ready for you to look at to make sure you're informed at the high school. And then there was something else. Oh, we do robocalls at the middle school. They don't have the robocalls for missing work, but teachers post very often, either in Schoology or on the parent portal. So if you haven't started using the parent portal yet, that would be a really good thing to get keyed in. The students who are here at Basalt Middle School, that is available to you. You just need to check in with the secretaries to get your access code if you don't have it yet. And then once you get to the high school, you can check all the time. The kids can be checking how they're doing with grades, if there's anything that they need to turn in that's been missing. And in the Schoology accounts, there are teachers who have websites. So I think the communication is really good. It's easy to follow how your kids are doing, and for kids to check in on themselves, how they're doing. And then another piece that happens at the beginning of the school year, you guys can talk more about the link crew. There's a transition that helps a lot. Can you share about that?
Yeah. So at the beginning of the year, classes start on a Tuesday, and late the first week, new students, all 8th grade, current 8th graders, 9th grade students come in on Friday and participate with current students, a bunch of initiatives, games where new students get to know current students and the student leadership at the school, and there's a lot of kind of bonding between the new freshman class and the school's leadership throughout the whole day. We're also working on an orientation trip that would take place just prior to that in the week just before school starts for students who are interested in a wilderness orientation and volunteer project. So those two things are ways that we can reach out to new students right before school starts.
And another thing that happens before school starts is the kids receive their schedule in the mail. Sometimes there are empty classes, or you might see something that you weren't really sure about why it's there based on your registration that you do next week. It's really easy to work with the staff. You just call or email the counselors or the administration, and they help you figure out how to problem solve through some of those things, because it's a really complicated deal to put those schedules together. And I just know, having been out in the community and hearing people say, I don't know about this, my question has always been, did you call and talk to the counselor? Because they always solve things for us really quickly, in my experience.
I would, to build on that, I think it's important to know that we have these events, like this is the night when we share information, and then the 17th is when you have to register. it's important that we communicate outside of those events. So just know that if you have questions, we'd rather receive a question or email or phone, have you come in and answer it. So us working together is not restricted to the events we set up to work together. So please contact us if you do have questions.
Yeah.
Can you speak to whether participation on a school sports team will count as physical education credits? I think I've heard in the past there's maybe been some conflict between when band is offered and PE and students being able to do both.
Yeah. That's a great question. PE, there's 2 PE credits required for graduation, and we encourage and expect all students to take those. If the limitations of the schedule make it very hard to do that, then we do look at competitive sports as an alternative, organized competitive sports as an alternative to your PE requirement. It's 1 season equals 5 credits, or 2 seasons fulfills your PE requirement. We're very supportive and enthusiastic about the job Ralph Smalley does, and it's a very, very popular class across the curricula over all 4 years. And so we definitely drive students into those classes, but there are times when it's just physically not possible. So we have a process, if you will, to recognize competitive sports. Yeah.
Could you clarify the registration timing? There's this night next week, there's some registration going on possibly with the Basalt School kids during classes. Is Wednesday it for people outside of our local Basalt school community? Is there a deadline or what?
Yeah, I mean, so let's back up just a big step and realize that people move to our area all the time. And so it's not, the doors aren't shutting. It really is an open enrollment process, and we welcome families to check us out, visit our school, pose the questions you want to pose, all those things. So for sake of our planning purposes, who are we hiring? What does our schedule look like? How does that whole process unfold? We need to have people sign up who are intending to come to school. That takes place next Wednesday. Boom. Tomorrow is an information session with students and teachers and administrators and counselors, where we're going to go into 8th grade core classes and have a little bit more of an informal go-around around this is what high school looks like, and have students who are younger, smarter, stronger, sweeter than I am say, these are the mistakes I made, these are the kinds of things you should think about. This is what I learned I wish I would have done differently. That kind of conversation tomorrow. So that's more of an informal session for 8th graders. And then a week's time next Wednesday, we'll have a spaghetti dinner from 5:30 to 6. And at 6, we'll break the group basically in half and have half learning more about the kind of support structures of the school, and the other half doing both registration and also learning about some of the activities and clubs of the school. So that's what that looks like next Wednesday. And then by all means, if somebody's late to the game, we're just going to work that out. But the idea is to get the course planning in place so that we can make preparations for next year. Thanks. Yeah.
I missed the very beginning, so you may have covered this, but is the current 8th grade math teacher going to be giving that sheet of paper to the 8th grade kids saying you're going into math 2 or you're going into math 1?
When we talked to, when I came to the middle school, we talked about that decision was being made in a conversation between the 8th grade teacher and the student, and they've shared a spreadsheet of that. I don't know personally if they've handed a physical piece of paper to the student, but I know they've had the conversation.
So can Jen speak to that? I mean, I'm only going off of what we got 2 years ago. We got an actual paper saying math 2.
I am not sure because that teacher isn't here anymore, Mr. Monchek. So I would need to check with Ms. Douglas because she also taught math with him last year, and she would know what the procedure is. I know that performance in math, third quarter, fourth quarter, and on the NWEA test at the end in May is going to be really important. And I know that they make a recommendation and then the student and parent decides, like, am I ready for that challenge or not? Or I think I'm ready even though they don't think I am, and it is a conversation. You are the one that registers for your class.
So on the 17th, we're going on what we think our kid will take? Math 2 or Math 1?
That's a good question.
I don't want to dig through my email now, but they shared with us all those recommendations that were informed by that conversation with the kid. And so we're going to have those available to us, but you ask a question, like, when I imagine the student is going to walk in with the same knowledge that we have from looking at that.
So we should ask our 8th grader.
Yeah.
What he or she knows.
Has Mr. Intern talked to you about that?
There was a recommendation on the report card from it. Okay, in quarter 2.
I'll look.
Okay.
Thanks.
And we can, if you have that question, I would recommend you contact the math teacher. Just email them, help us with this before we go to registration next week.
So you're saying that, I mean, the recommendation was made to our child. So our child will be telling you what they're going to be taking, like.
Yeah, so we position them to make that call. We have them signing up. Now we're doing that with a crew leader who has the recommendation next to them. So it's like, hey, it looks like you've been recommended for this. But yeah, you're right. They're not going to sign up for something wildly different because we have all the recommendations from their teachers. But we do position them that to actually choose their courses, even if they're just getting used to that.
Yeah, question?
Do classes, oh, I'm sorry.
You go next.
Do classes film? In other words, and especially for students who are from middle schools outside, beyond Basalt Middle School, and so perhaps the communication from the teacher with the recommendation is delayed, comes after February 17th. Is there that concern that a math 2 class might fill, you know what I'm saying, or do you just accommodate as many kids into?
Yeah, we get to it, when we start to get at 28 or above, we start to consider breaking the class in half. So that's the plan that I was talking about earlier. So no, it's not a question. You're not going to be late and then go, oh, you can't take that. That's not going to happen. Good question. I wanted to, go ahead. You had a question.
The question that I had was also from Math 2. I saw in there summer in parentheses. Can you speak to that and what that means and what it consists of?
Yeah, in past years, we've offered like a readiness for Math 2 Academy that just kind of allows you to not have those 2 months off from solving problems in mathematics, and staff like this all high school teachers, and it's helped to kind of provide this bridge over the summer so you're really ready to start. Yeah, exactly what that's going to look like this summer, we haven't figured that out with our math department, but we are going to try to, even if it's just having a set of recommended like things to work on over the summer assignments, we do want something to help kids not, lose ground over the summer because they're working on mathematics. So to come later, we're working with our department.
Along with the summer, last year we had some challenges with parents not being aware that 8th graders are required to read a book over the summer for that beginning of the school year. And so I'm just wondering if that's going to be a requirement that we need to let everyone know about, that they will have a reading requirement over the summer.
Yeah, we haven't made that decision, but if we did, I think that's good feedback to hear. I think just frankly, we had there were issues there, and so we want to make sure we solve those issues, address those before we embark on read your book, and then have students come and be like, oh, I didn't know about the book. That was not a good way to start.
So if there is a book,
Yeah.
there does happen to be a book, we would be sending that out through our emails, and the teacher would be telling the students, and there would be some paperwork. We try to hit all of our different categories, and then the library also has the list that sits in the team library all summer for all the classes at the high school, and we pick up any required reading. So you can always just double check at the library when you're there, the public library.
So I feel like there's often in schools a little bit of an arms race on who can take the hardest classes quickest and the most of them. And I just want to caution you and remind you that your son or daughter needs to have that say and that ownership of what they want to do and how they want to pursue their academic interests. And I think what we try to do is to show you that the choices in ninth grade are very minimal. A couple of electives. You could take AP Geography, or you don't have to. We think we'll have maybe one section of AP Geography, maybe two. Whether you do well in AP Geography is not going to determine if you're a successful adult or not. It's just a start, and it's a long process. And I just want to make sure that you think about this in terms of 4 years and in terms of where you want to go the rest of your life. I never took an AP class. I survived in college. I went on to grad school. I went on to do things I liked to do. And I think that's a really powerful message that we really want to start with and end with, is that this is an exciting time. There's nothing more challenging from my perspective of shepherding your son or daughter through high school. And it's just a great time, and we're here to help you in the process. We're excited to see you come to dinner next Wednesday, and we really hope the very best for your son or daughter's lives as they move on to Basalt High School and higher education. We're going to be here, yes?
One more thing.
Oh my God.
I just thought, the blocks and periods.
Blocks and periods.
Yeah.
Right now we're operating in a 6-period day and a 4-block day. And so it's confusing, and right now we're evaluating that process of how we offer classes. We're getting feedback from teachers, and we're just going to continue to look at what's the best kind of instructional schedule to support the things we want to do in science, which is discovery, and oftentimes in writing, which happens in smaller, more consistent bites. So that's something we're in the process of.
I was just going to add that he's right. It sometimes is hard to decipher. I've learned that almost as a rule, it's not really that big deal for students because they're really smarter than we are. It's not that big a deal or something to stress out about our schedule, whether it stays the same or changes. It's meant to have more contact time and more frequency for mathematics and literacy. And but it is not a thing that you guys as students should be worried about. You'll figure it out, and it'll make total sense when you do that.
Periods are just every day.
Yeah.
And blocks are every other day on like a purple gold schedule. We have purple silver with our specials, so there's this purple gold for the blocks.
Yeah.
Sorry. So a lot of us here have been here for 4 years. We're very familiar with how BMS works, and I'm just wondering if you can give a kind of overview you're going to do this tomorrow with the students, but for tonight for the parents, how is our experiences going to be changing at the high school from what we know here? We talked about blocks and periods. Is there anything else that we should be thinking about, or just know about the daily life of a high schooler going through your schedule in your school?
I think one of the things that we notice is that parents are often in elementary schools and often in middle schools, and we invite parents to be at the high school, and we're always looking for help. Parents often get involved in the booster club, in athletics, and that's awesome, but we really appreciate when somebody says, hey, Mr. Bueller, I am happy to help if anything comes up. And I think that's one of the things that feels different, is that it feels very much a student, faculty-centered place, and we're trying to open up the doors as much as we can and have a greater, kind of presence of community and family members in the high school. I find it incredibly warm and welcoming. I have from day one, and I think you will find the same, even though it is kind of intimidating initially to see that rush of hormonal emergence in one place. It's like, wow! But it's a great place. And I guess it's a hard question to answer given the fact that you might, Jen, have a better perspective on that.
Well, I have a freshman and a junior, and I feel like the biggest difference is really the responsibility. From 4th grade to 5th grade is a huge jump, and then as they move through the middle school, they gain more and more individual responsibility, and then they jump to the high school level, and they're doing things like going to the counselor and saying, I want my schedule changed by themselves without the parent in sight. So that part of the student really taking ownership of the learning, them taking ownership of what they're signing themselves up for, and really understanding and guiding you through their day versus you guiding them through their day. That was the biggest shift for me. Otherwise, it was school. They got there, they were nervous on the first day, and they felt really great afterwards. Freshmen can't leave campus at lunch, right? So they're not like driving around at lunchtime, leaving campus. There are activities at lunch. Sometimes they do, I can't remember so many things they come home and say that they're doing at lunch.
Chess.
Chess. There are different games that the kids just all get together and they play some different games, and they have a lot of fun. And they work really hard. So it's a good place.
Maybe kind of do a similarity. I think that what the middle school does really well is they have that conversation about like growth and the future. And it's not like what you want to do for a career. That's not the conversation, but it's about like progressing and growing, and kids starting to own that more. And I think the similarity is that's the conversation we have. And Jen's right to draw attention to the fact that we're trying to put more responsibility on the student owning that. But the conversation is like, how are you progressing with your ready for college? Like, what are you interested in? And really moving towards the future and grow. That's a similarity.
Yeah.
Is each student assigned to one of the two school counselors, and is that alphabetically?
Yes. A through M is Ted Parenti, and N through is Bo. And then likewise, we have crew for all students.
On Wednesdays, they have whole school community meetings with guest speakers, student speakers. The kids always come home and talk about whatever those meetings were on Wednesdays.
So for example, tomorrow we had several students who received the dream project grant for 5 points. And so the time for submitting proposals is coming up pretty soon. So we're having one of our students show a feature because he was given like a film. He's actually not showing that film, but he's made some others. So he's kind of showing a short feature, and then we're featuring this opportunity for kids and this related community. So that's one thing to do there.
So I'm hearing a lot of comments about preparing students for college. And if a student isn't on a college track, how does career differ from college preparation? Is there a shop? Is there opportunities to work in the community? Are there mentors who come and teach how to file nails or bake or do plumbing? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah. Really, we don't do that. We're not a trade school. We're about reading, writing, and arithmetic. So that's our goal, is to have every student graduate ready for college. If they opt into a 2-year school or a 4-year school or a school for plumbing, that's fine. We don't have a judgment about where you go, but your trade school is going to require the same academic foundation for you to be successful, and that's our goal, responsibility.
Our college and career counselors are actually very adept at partnering with trade schools. Trade schools were after high school. And that's kind of the reality of trades now, is you need to continue your education after high school. And so we are looking at supporting kids in the following careers that are in the trades, but that looks like them being college ready after high school.
Different world than mine was in high school.
So when are we to see you? What time? Oh, what are we gonna eat for dinner? Oh, and who's gonna serve? Oh, good job. That's right. We're gonna do the dishes, serve, and cook, and we will see you Wednesday, next Wednesday at 5:30 to register for classes. You'll meet a bunch of folks from the high school. We look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much for coming this evening.